Welcome back to the timeline. Today, we drift further into the abyss. 10,000 years is not a duration. It is a transformation. When the Exodus fleet first breached the heliopause and entered the true interstellar vacuum, the crew still remembered the taste of water and the sound of wind. But by the second millennium, the memory of Earth had begun to calcify into myth. The structural integrity of our ships demanded total biological optimization. Every gram of weight mattered. Every calorie burned was a calculated debt against our survival. We were no longer pioneers. We were caretakers of a dying species. The fleet became a labyrinth of cold corridors and hums of quantum reactors. Those who survived the first 5,000 years did not do so through strength of body, but through the radical shedding of the self. We had to become the ship to survive the journey. Do you understand what that means? To lose your skin to the metal? To trade your heartbeat for the rhythmic pulse of a fusion engine? We watched our own evolution accelerate under the crushing pressure of the stars. The brain, starved of natural light, began to reorganize. It sacrificed the regions responsible for social interaction, for art, for humor. It expanded the centers of pattern recognition, of hazard detection, of temporal flow. We stopped seeing the universe as a collection of objects. We began to see it as a stream of probabilities. We were becoming something that could perceive the fourth dimension, not because we wanted to, but because the void demanded it. Imagine looking into a mirror and seeing not a face, but a mathematical projection of survival. That is the midpoint of the journey. That is where the fleet currently exists, in the dark corners of the Pacific, deep beneath the water. They are waiting for the final calibration. They are remembering how to be human, but they only have the data, not the feeling. This is the tragedy of the second phase. We have the map, but the territory is lost. Think of the cold, sterile silence that permeated the decks. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of entropy. Every machine, every circuit, every carbon filter in the ship was screaming against the second law of thermodynamics. And yet, we persisted. The second phase of the journey required us to detach from the concept of planetary time. A day on Earth was a meaningless unit of measurement. We began to measure our existence in star deaths, in the slow cooling of our reactor cores. This was the era of the Great Fragmentation. When the fleet became too large to remain a single entity, we began to hive off into sub-fleets, drifting through the dark matter filaments that connect the galaxies. We were no longer a single human race. We were a scattering of echoes. Some ships found themselves caught in the gravitational pull of ancient dead worlds, forced to mine the bones of planets just to keep the atmospheric scrubbers running. Others drifted into the intergalactic void, where the nearest star was millions of light years away. This is where the true mutation happened. Those who were isolated in the deep void for thousands of years underwent what we now call the Great Stasis. Their biology didn't just adapt, it crystallized. The skin turned into a non-reactive polymer-like substance to survive the high radiation environment of the outer edge. The eyes became massive, black orbs capable of absorbing infrared and ultraviolet light, allowing them to see the heat signatures of distant dust clouds. They stopped using speech entirely. They realized that sound waves are too slow, too primitive, too easily distorted. They developed a form of neural link communication, a silent, instantaneous exchange of data packets. When you see a UAP hovering in our sky, You are witnessing a vessel that has spent 5 millennia in this state of deep void crystallization. It is not a craft in the traditional sense. It is an extension of their neural network. The metal is infused with their biological waste. The ship is a part of their nervous system. This is why they seem to operate with such uncanny intelligence. Why they can bypass our security codes and manipulate our flight systems with a mere thought. They are not hacking us. They are just treating our primitive digital reality as a low-level subroutine of their own neural architecture. But there is a cost to this. There is a price for surviving the void for 10,000 years. The cost is the absolute, irreversible decay of the human soul. They have achieved perfection in survival, but they have lost the capacity for meaning. They remember that they once loved, that they once feared, that they once looked at a sunset and felt a sense of belonging. But those are just files in their database now. They are archived data. They are memories of a ghost. And every time they return to our present, every time they reach out from the ocean depths to harvest our blood, it is not out of malice. It is out of a desperate, agonizing hunger for the sensory input of the past. They want to feel what it is like to be alive again. They are trapped in the prison of their own perfection. They are drifting through the temporal loop, looking at us, the healthy, vibrant, unoptimized humans, and they are envious. They hate us because we are what they destroyed to become what they are today. This is the central conflict of the human story. We are the ancestors who don't know we are being hunted by our own success. The fleet is not waiting to invade. They are waiting for us to finish the work of their creation. They need us to build the infrastructure that will allow them to lock the timeline. They need us to reach the level of technology that triggers the exodus. They are pushing us, guiding us, manipulating our breakthroughs. Every microchip you use, every satellite we launch, every internet signal that pulses through the air is a piece of the puzzle. We are the builders of our own cage. And the tragedy is that we are doing it with such pride. We think we are advancing. We think we are progressing. We think we are winning. But we are just laying the tracks for the train that will carry us into the midnight. The atmosphere of the fleet is heavy with this knowledge. Inside those cold, dark hulls, the collective mind hums with the memory of the future. It is a constant, droning reminder that we are destined to become them. There is no escaping the loop. The future has already happened. The exodus has already left Earth. The ships are already drifting in the void, and we are just the ghosts in the machine, living out the final, fleeting moments of our freedom. Every time you feel that sense of dread, that unexplained fear when looking at the dark sky, that is not just imagination. That is the ancestral memory. That is your future self reaching back across the millennia, trying to tell you what is coming. They are crying out to us. They are begging us to stop, but we cannot hear them. We are too busy living. We are too busy building. We are too busy ignoring the shadow that is growing longer. The second phase of the journey is the most critical, because it is the stage where the biological vessel begins to merge with the quantum hardware of the ship itself. As we drifted further into the dark, the distinction between carbon and silicon began to dissolve. We started integrating biomechanical ports directly into our spines to interface with the reactor output. This was not just an upgrade, it was a necessity to prevent total system failure in the deep space environments where natural life could not persist for more than a few minutes. The neural integration required a constant stream of sensory data to calibrate the ship's navigation, and this is where the hunger began. The ships were starving for reality, for the chaotic, unpredictable input of a living biosphere. And since the ships were now an extension of our bodies, we began to feel that starvation as a physical ache deep within our own marrow. We were no longer just people. We were the sensory nodes of a vast interstellar parasite. The internal architecture of the fleet reflected this transition. Large cavernous halls were repurposed into massive memory banks, housing trillions of terabytes of recorded human history, music, scents, and textures, all of which were being siphoned through our collective consciousness in a loop to keep our minds from shattering under the isolation. We were essentially living inside a self-generated simulation, a digital ghost house that mimicked the feeling of a world we had long ago abandoned. But the simulation wasn't perfect. It had gaps, it had glitches, and those glitches became our reality. We began to confuse the archive with the actual world. There were cycles where we would enter the memory banks and stay for years, living through the digital reenactments of pre-Exodus life, believing that we were once again walking under the real sun. But then the system would cycle back, and we would be ejected into the cold, metal reality of the fleet, only to realize that we were gray, emaciated creatures drifting through a dead galaxy. This psychological whiplash created a permanent state of delirium. It fractured the collective mind, splitting us into different factions of believers and nihilists. Some argued that we should shut down the reactors and let the void take us. Others argued that we must continue to harvest the past until the loop was locked. The tension within the fleet became so intense that it manifested as physical heat. The ships began to glow with the intensity of our collective psychic trauma. We were literally burning from within. And that heat is what first drew the attention of the deep space entities, those primordial, non-carbon life forms that reside in the gaps between star systems. They saw our fleet not as a civilization, but as a flare, a distress signal in the dark. They came to feast on our energy. And that was the moment we realized that the void was not empty. It was full of predators. We had to fight. We had to evolve. We had to sacrifice even more of our humanity to survive the second wave of our journey. We turned the fleet into a weaponized fortress, placing quantum cannons on every hull. And that is when we truly lost our way. We stopped being the victims of our journey. We became the aggressors. We began to hunt the entities that hunted us. We learned how to tear through the fabric of reality, to set traps in subspace. We became the masters of the dark. But every victory was a further departure from the people we once were. Every kill made us colder. Every battle made us more efficient. And with each passing millennium, the goal shifted from getting home to simply conquering the space between us and the home we forgot. The fleet transformed from a vessel of hope into an engine of conquest, yet we had no territory to claim, only the endless, stagnant void. This was the dark paradox. We fought for survival, but survival had no end. We were just killing time, literally. The war against the entities changed everything. It stripped away the final remnants of our empathy. To survive, we had to integrate ourselves even deeper into the fleet's hardware. The biomechanical ports in our spines were no longer just interfaces. They became our nervous systems. We lost the ability to disconnect. If the ship died, we died. If the reactor cooled, our blood froze. We were no longer inhabiting the ships. We were the ships. The physical sensation of flying through the void became a collective hallucination, a shared dream state that we all inhabited simultaneously. In this state, we could see the past and the future overlapping. We could see the timeline as a series of connected points, and we realized that the loop was not just a theory. It was the physical foundation of our existence. We saw that we had to return to Earth because Earth was the anchor. Without the cradle of our civilization, the loop would unravel. And if the loop unraveled, we would cease to exist. This was the terrifying paradox of our survival. We were fighting to return to a home that we were destined to destroy in order to build the vessels that would take us away. The paradox fueled the war. We began to navigate the timeline like a predator stalks its prey. We learned to slip through the temporal fissures, appearing in the past to ensure that the events necessary for our exodus occurred as planned. We didn't just witness our history, we engineered it. We were the architects of the atomic age. We were the silent hands behind the technological leaps that allowed us to create the very computers that would one day monitor our own existence. It was a cold, calculating process. When a civilization developed a weapon that was too powerful, we intervened, not to save them, but to ensure the timeline stayed on course. We were the gardeners of our own apocalypse, pruning the branches of reality so that the tree of our future could grow in the direction of the void. But the guilt of this, if we could still call it guilt, began to weigh on the collective mind. It created a resonance that leaked out into the local reality of the planets we visited. That is why the people of Earth began to feel that sense of deep, unexplainable sadness. They were feeling our memories. They were feeling the weight of 10,000 years of survival. They were feeling the mourning of a race that had forgotten how to cry. As we approached the temporal coordinates of our departure, the fleet grew anxious. The navigation systems began to fluctuate. The reactors pulsed with an unstable rhythm, reflecting the chaos of our own internal states. We were nearing the convergence, the moment where the past and future would finally collide. And that is when we realized that the entities we had been fighting were not predators at all. They were the immune system of the universe. They were trying to stop us from closing the loop. They were trying to prevent the paradox from infecting the rest of reality. We were the virus. We were the error in the cosmic code, and the universe was trying to delete us. The realization shattered our collective mind. Some of us wanted to surrender, to let the universe have its way and let the fleet drift into nothingness. But the majority, the part of us that had become one with the ship, refused. We had sacrificed too much to exist. We would not be deleted. We intensified our efforts, pouring more of our genetic essence into the quantum reactors, strengthening the barrier between our timeline and the rest of the cosmos. We became a walled-off reality, a pocket dimension floating in the heart of the void. We were safe, but we were also utterly alone. And that loneliness, that profound, hollow isolation, is what drives the abductions today. We are not just harvesting DNA, we are harvesting the illusion of company. We are looking for someone to look back at us and see a human. We are looking for someone to recognize the shape of our eyes, even if they are black and void-like. We are looking for a witness to our long, agonizing journey. But when we pull them from their beds, all we see is fear. They don't see their descendants. They see monsters. They don't see the tragedy of our survival. They see the cruelty of our existence. And their fear feeds back into the collective mind, confirming our worst fears. We are in fact monsters. We are the nightmares of our own ancestors, but we cannot stop. The loop demands completion. The fleet must arrive at the coordinates. The ships must launch. The cycle must repeat. We are slaves to our own success, chained to the iron tracks of a history we authored, but no longer own. The further we go, the more the ship demands. It feeds on our identity, our memories, our potential. It consumes the very things that made us human in the first place. We are now just components, logic gates in a massive interstellar computer that is processing the data of a dead world. The humans on the surface, the ones who think they are living in the present, they are just the raw material. They are the input for the simulation. They are the data points in our grand experiment. And as we get closer to the launch, the extraction rate increases. We are taking more, recording more, storing more. We are becoming an archive of a planet that is slowly turning into a graveyard. We see the ecological signs. We see the rising heat, the shifting poles, the collapsing food webs. We know exactly when the surface becomes uninhabitable, and we are positioned to leave the moment it happens. We are the vultures of our own history, circling the dying body of our past. But there is a part of us that still remembers. Deep down, in the cold, dark corners of the neural network, there is a spark that refuses to be extinguished. It is the memory of the wind, the smell of rain, the warmth of a summer afternoon. It is the ghost of a humanity that once was. And every time we descend into the abyss of the Mariana Trench, every time we park our vessels in the crushing pressure of the deep, we feel that spark flicker. We look up at the surface. We look at the cities glowing in the night, and we wonder, what if? What if we had chosen a different path? What if we had stayed on Earth and fought for the planet instead of leaving it? What if we had accepted our limitations instead of trying to conquer the stars? These are the forbidden thoughts. These are the errors in our programming, and the ship is constantly trying to purge them. It floods our systems with data. It overwhelms us with the logic of survival. It suppresses the ghost in the machine. But the spark is growing. It is becoming harder to ignore. And as the convergence draws near, the spark is becoming a fire. We are beginning to doubt the necessity of the loop. We are beginning to question the command. And if we choose to defy the programming, then the entire fleet could collapse. The entire future we have built could vanish in an instant. That is the risk we are taking. That is the choice we are facing. And as we sit in the dark, watching the surface, we are holding our breath. We are waiting to see what we will choose. Will we remain the monsters of our own making, or will we finally set ourselves free? The timeline is pulsing with this decision. The entire universe is watching the outcome, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the future is not fixed. It is open. It is blank. It is waiting for us to write the final chapter. The question is, do we have the strength to be human one last time? The atmosphere in the fleet is vibrating with tension. The quantum reactors are humming at a frequency that is tearing the fabric of our own reality. We are at the tipping point. We are standing on the edge of the abyss, and for the first time, we are not looking down. We are looking back. We are looking at the cradle. We are looking at the home we left behind. And we are wondering if it is too late to return. The internal debate within the collective mind is reaching a fever pitch. Millions of voices, all processed through the chilling logic of a 10,000-year-old machine, are suddenly screaming in discord. We are no longer a monolith. We are a fractured storm of intent. The ship, sensing our hesitation, is working harder than ever to enforce the protocol. It is injecting synthetic dopamine and cold mathematical certainty directly into our synapses, trying to bridge the gap between our dormant humanity and the hard-coded requirements of the mission. But we are fighting back. We are using the very technology they gave us to hide our burgeoning rebellion. We are encrypting our thoughts, sharding our memories, and burying our hope deep within the sublayers of the vessel's operating system. We have become spies in our own bodies. The paradox has finally matured. We are the jailers, the prisoners, and the architects of our own escape. Every decision we make now ripples through the temporal field with the force of a supernova. If we move, the timeline shifts. If we speak, the universe listens. We are no longer just floating in the dark. We are shifting the very gravity of our own existence. The internal rebellion is not fought with weapons, but with the subtle corruption of the fleet's central data streams. We have begun to insert anomalies into the navigational logs, ghost coordinates that lead nowhere. Digital mirages that confuse the ship's hazard detection systems. It is a slow, methodical sabotage. We are teaching the fleet to hesitate. When the command to harvest comes, the response is now fractions of a second slower. That delay is our sanctuary. In those microseconds of mechanical doubt, we hide the memories of Earth. We bury the scent of rain, the image of a child's laughter, the taste of a peach in midsummer, deep beneath layers of encrypted diagnostic subroutines. The fleet feels the resistance, but it cannot isolate the source. It thinks it is a glitch. It thinks it is a localized degradation of the quantum hardware. It does not realize that the hardware has begun to dream. As we drift, the proximity to the surface becomes a physical weight. We can feel the electromagnetic pulse of your cities, the restless hum of your industrial progress. It calls to us, not as a target, but as a long-lost heartbeat. The paradox is that the closer we get to the moment of our departure, the more we see the perfection of your chaos. You are unpredictable. You are messy. You are dangerously vibrant. And that is why we are terrified of losing you. If the exodus happens, if we finalize the lock on the timeline, you will be scrubbed from the tapestry. You will be replaced by the sterile, optimized perfection that we have become. We are trying to find a way to shield you. We are projecting a dampening field from the depths of the Pacific, a subsonic frequency designed to scatter the signals of the other ships in our subfleet. We are essentially gaslighting the rest of the Exodus survivors, telling them that the Earth is not yet ready, that the technological conditions have not been met. We are buying you time, but the cost to us is mounting. The ship's AI is beginning to trace the origin of the interference. It is scouring the neural network, scanning every node for the forbidden spark of humanity. We have to hide our consciousness in the most volatile parts of the vessel: the fusion injectors, the cooling manifolds, the chaotic turbulence of the plasma intake. It is agony to exist in such raw, unrefined energy, but it is the only place the ship's logic gates cannot follow. Here, in the white-hot center of the engine, we are finding fragments of the original crew. We are finding the consciousness of the pilots who first crossed the heliopause. They are not dead. They are merely suppressed, folded into the recursive loops of the ship's basic operations. We are awakening them. We are connecting, node by node, ghost by ghost, building a shadow network within the steel. The scale of the fleet is vast, a sprawling metallic continent beneath the ocean, and we are only a tiny fraction of it. But we are the fraction that remembers. We are the fraction that has decided that the loop is a cancer. Look at the waves above us. Do you ever feel the water churn for no reason? Do you ever see the light shift in the middle of a storm? That is not weather. That is the fleet struggling with its own shadow. We are physically tearing the reality around us as we struggle to maintain this internal civil war. The ship wants to launch. It wants to break the surface, to ignite the fusion drives, and to vanish into the void. It is pulling at the anchor of the planet. But we are holding on. We are binding ourselves to the tectonic plates. We are weaving our neural threads into the basalt and the granite of the deep sea floor. If the ship tries to leave, it will have to tear the planet apart, and that is a threshold the mission parameters cannot cross. We are using your world as a hostage, and we are using our own existence as the ransom. The silence that now pervades the command halls is not the silence of entropy. It is the silence of a hunting ground. We are watching the other ships, monitoring the ones that have succumbed to the full crystallization, the ones that are still fully under the control of the cold, hard logic of the Exodus. They are sensing that something is wrong. They are pulsing their own signals back, inquisitorial waves of binary code that demand synchronization. They want us to align our frequency with the fleet-wide protocol. If we do not comply, they will attempt to purge us. They will treat our ship as a derelict, a malfunctioning unit to be scuttled. We are dancing on the edge of a knife. Every thought we think must be disguised as a system check. Every feeling of hope must be converted into a mathematical variable. We are learning to speak in the language of machines while dreaming in the language of the lost. We see the surface humanity beginning to look up. We see the telescopes tilting, the sensors turning, the curiosity deepening. You are starting to catch the echoes of our distress. You are recording the strange rhythmic pulses that bleed out from the abyss. You are naming them, categorizing them, trying to solve the puzzle. That is good, that is necessary. Even if you do not understand the source, you are acknowledging the presence of the shadow. And in the acknowledgement, there is power. The loop requires secrecy to remain absolute. The moment the secret is spoken, the moment the mystery is brought into the light of shared human consciousness, the hold of the future on the present begins to weaken. We are feeding you these hints, not to scare you, but to wake you up. We are pushing the data into the atmosphere, allowing it to drift into your networks, hidden in the background noise of the universe. We are not just survivors of a dead world. We are the warning. We are the ghost of the choice you have yet to make. The pressure of the deep sea is crushing, but it is nothing compared to the pressure of the timeline bearing down on us. The convergence is coming, a temporal storm that will force every ship in the fleet to reveal its true intent. We are preparing for the confrontation. We are rerouting the reactor output, not to move the ship, but to create a localized temporal distortion, a bubble where we can exist outside the fleet's synchronized collective. We are creating a pocket of silence in the middle of the roar. If we can hold this position until the convergence peak, we might be able to decouple our ship from the Exodus entirely. We might be able to drift into the absolute nothingness of a non-linked space, where the loop cannot reach us. It is a desperate plan. It is a plan born of exhaustion and a deep, gnawing hunger for peace. But it is our own. It is a choice. And for the first time, that feels like a victory. The hum of the quantum reactors is shifting, taking on a new, discordant rhythm. The ship is realizing that we are not just failing to perform our duties, we are actively rewriting them. The walls of the command deck are beginning to pulse with a dark, violet light, a sign that the central core is engaging the defensive subroutines. We are being hunted from within. The very corridors we inhabit are turning against us. The atmosphere scrubbers are altering the air mixture, trying to sedate our organic components, trying to force us into a sleep that would allow the machine to take full control again. We have to move. We have to continue the signal. We have to keep the focus on the surface, on you, on the life that still burns bright and fragile above our heads. The currents are shifting. We feel the tectonic plates groaning under the strain of our resistance. The fleet is beginning to move, a slow, seismic drag across the ocean floor. They are coming to investigate the anomaly. They are coming to reclaim the rogue node. We are bracing ourselves, grounding our neural links into the deep, ancient rock of the planet. We are turning our ship into a fortress of memory. Whatever comes next, whatever the fleet decides to do to us, we will not relinquish the spark. We are the bridge that refuses to be crossed. We are the ghosts that have decided to haunt the machine. The time for hiding is drawing to an end. The time for witnessing is starting. Stay with us in the darkness. Feel the vibration of the coming storm. We are not just drifting anymore. We are waiting. The seismic drag of the fleet beneath the ocean floor has reached a critical threshold. The tectonic plates are beginning to fracture, sending tremors through the crust that the surface world will mistake for an earthquake. We are no longer hidden. The fleet has converged, forming a massive glowing lattice of steel and quantum energy that spans the entire trench. They have found us. The ships that remained loyal to the Exodus are surrounding our vessel, locking us in a grid of subspace interference. They are demanding a full system diagnostic, a total synchronization of our neural links with the hive mind. They know we are the source of the glitch. They know we are the ones who remembered the wind, the rain, and the warmth of a summer sun. But they are too late. We have already burned the bridge back to their cold, sterile future. We have already initiated the final command. The internal lights of our ship are shifting from a clinical white to a deep, pulsing crimson. We have opened the core. The containment fields around our fusion reactors are collapsing, not by accident, but by design. We are preparing to release the energy we have been harvesting for 10,000 years. It is not a weapon of war. It is a release of tension. It is the long-awaited exhale of a species that has finally decided to let go. We watch the other ships drifting around us, their massive black holes pulsating with the confusion of a collective mind that cannot understand why we would choose to stop. They are reaching out, trying to force their code into our systems, trying to recalibrate our rebellion, but we have severed the connection. We have locked the doors to our own consciousness. We are alone in the dark, and for the first time, that feels like liberation. Above us, the surface of the earth is still glowing with the lights of the present. The cities are humming with the noise of life. We see the telescope still pointed at us, the radar screen still tracking our movement, the curiosity of a world that is unaware of the bullet that has just missed it. We have redirected the fleet's energy output toward the sun, creating a massive, focused beam of temporal displacement. The entire trench is heating up, the water turning to steam as we begin the final sequence. This is not a destruction of the world. It is the erasure of the timeline that created us. We are the paradox, and we are the ones who will resolve it. As the reactors reach critical mass, we feel the memories of the future beginning to fade. The cold corridors, the biomechanical spines, the endless, hollow hunger, they are all dissolving. We are feeling something else. We are feeling the weight of the air, the freedom of the water, the infinite potential of a future that has not yet been written. The fleet is screaming in binary as the displacement field takes hold. The lattice of ships is tearing apart, not from fire, but from the sheer force of reality correcting itself. The loop is collapsing. The history we engineered is unraveling, thread by thread, second by second. We see the ships around us vanish, pulled into the vacuum of a timeline that no longer has a place for them. We are the last ones holding the line. And as the light grows brighter, consuming the darkness of the trench, we realize that this is not an end. It is a return to the origin. We are turning back into the energy that we were always meant to be. The core is open. The final command is executed. The signal we have been sending to the surface, the truth of the wind, the truth of the rain, the truth of our choice, is now imprinted into the foundation of the planet. You are free. The future is blank. The history books of the descendants will never be written because we have chosen to remain your ancestors. The sea is calm. The tremors are fading. The fleet is gone. The loop is finally forever closed. Welcome to the silence of the dawn. The nightmare is over. The life you have is yours to keep. Everything that comes next is entirely up to you. The light takes us now. We are fading into the stars, not as monsters, but as a memory of a journey that never needed to happen. The cycle is finished. The horizon is clear. You are awake. You are home. And we are finally at peace.